Hey guys, it's Graham here. I'm in Halifax, Nova Scotia again, checking out Granite Brewery. This is one of the older microbreweries in Canada. It started in 1985. It's moved quite a lot, several different locations. This is where it is now, so let's go inside and check it out.
The history of the Granite Brewery? Well, I guess I started off basically in the tavern business back in 1975, and we were in the construction business at that point. We bought a tavern that was sort of on its last legs. It was in rough shape, but it was a beautiful property, and we thought we'd redo the property, which is what we did. For some reason, we decided, well, we might as well try and run this tavern for a while, and it'll give us time to make the plans and all that. And it was a pretty rough and tumble place on the waterfront in Halifax. Ginger's was, and so we went in and just basically spent about 30 people and cleaned it all up because it was in rough shape. A dangerous place too. Cleaned it all up and started selling a lot of beer. And we discovered that within 2 months we'd tripled the sales of the place, and we were doing okay, and it was kind of fun. So we kept at it, and so we did that for a number of years. And about in the early '80s, I read an article in one of the just trade papers about a guy out in British Columbia that it was the Troller Pub and the Horseshoe Bay Brewery. They were the little brewery that they'd built just about a block away from the Horseshoe Pub. And because in those days you couldn't have a brew pub, you couldn't have a brewery right in the pub. It was against the federal excise laws. Beer or any alcoholic beverage had to cross a public conveyance from its point of manufacture to its point of sale, which meant that you'd either have to come across the street with it, or I told him, I said, well, how about when I move it from the brewing kettle to the fermenter, I run it through a big hose out over the sidewalk and back in again, and then it's crossed a public conveyance. The guy says, yeah, that'd work. We didn't do that, but the law was changed, and about 3 months after the law changed, that's when the licensing became available. Now, I didn't do anything about that for a few years, and then I read another article about a place in England that you could go and be trained in it. And it was a little bit of back and forth and all over the place, and I ended up going over. First of all, I went down to the States and did a little seminar for a couple of days at the William F. Newman Brewing Company in Albany, New York. And he had been to the Ringwood Brewery in England and came back and opened a little microbrewery in Albany. After that, we left and went to I went to the States. Made arrangements to go over to England. And went over and spent about 2.5-3 months working at the Ringwood Brewery. Now, not working, I was paying to be there, and it was a pupillage, they called it. And brought my wife and family, and we all went over there and had a really nice summer, and really liked it. I just liked the place. I loved the people. The beer was really, really good, and they were actually trying to sell a pub that they had with a little brewery in it, and they were having a hard time selling it. So I just was talking to them. I said, well, listen, probably one of the reasons you're having a hard time selling this is it's because it's got the brewery in it. Like, it's a free house, and but people are looking at it thinking, I don't really want to be a brewer too. I just want a pub. And I said, why don't you sell me the brewery, and then you can sell the pub separately. They thought about it, so they came back and said, well, yeah, we think that'd work, So they ended up selling me the brewery. Within 2 weeks, they'd sold the pub. Like, it sold like that after that. So it took about, as soon as I came back, after making those arrangements, I started lobbying with the government to get the laws changed, because it was illegal to do this. Now, I knew it was going to happen, and so did they, but it was just a matter of, it took about 3 or 4 months of just hammering out whatever the regulations were going to be, and yada-da-da-da and all that. The brewery arrived in January. We were brewing by April of '85, and built the place, and lasted there until in '85, but in '87, for a variety of reasons, we decided to close that building down, and I wanted to move it into a different location because the business was changing a bit. So we moved it to a place called the Henry House, which is a beautiful old building in Heritage Canada building. Henry was one of the fathers of Confederation, It's got a Parks Canada plaque on it. Lovely old spot, about 180 years old, stone building. And it had been one of the nicest sort of high-end restaurants in the city that had fallen on hard times, and I bought it and got a good deal on that too. And moved in and went from being a tavern, like just a sort of waterfront tavern, is what Ginger's was, like a like a tough place with gave food away to sell a lot of beer kind of thing. But the business had changed, so we decided we put tablecloths on the table and set the tables and stuff like that. We were actually probably one of they call them gastro pubs now, guys are opening these things now saying we're the first gastro pub in Nova Scotia, and I go, didn't I do that 20 years ago? We didn't call it that then, but we had pretty good food, but our prices were reasonable. We'd make money on food, and the beer was just something I just thought it was something that I would have that nobody else had. And if they wanted to do it, then they could do what I did: go to England, spend a bunch of money, a lot of time, it's a lot of work. And I knew the guy. I knew all my competitors, and I knew none of them were willing to do that. So we were by ourselves in Nova Scotia for about 12 years, and developed a real good following of people. And in 1991, I have a brother in Toronto who was looking to get into business. He wanted to be an MBA, but just wasn't happy with what he was doing. And we talked about it a bit. We decided to open a brewery up there, so we opened it together. And it's been going for 21 years now, and just does really, really well. And it's called the Granite Brewery. It brews a lot of the same beers, a lot of the same beers that I brewed originally. Now I brew 1, 2, 3 beers that were developed up there. So we've got. Now he's still got some beers that he sells in Toronto that I don't sell here, and I've got a couple here that he doesn't sell. But our mainstays are the same beers, and brewed the same way, with the same kind of system, and it's like I said, it's done really well. After the Henry House, we decided to expand the brewery, and but in '87 that was, and plus I also wanted to expand the kitchen there, because we had a brewery and a kitchen where the former guy had just a kitchen, and it was getting tough to, the sales were, we had no right to be selling the amount of food we were in the kitchen, the size we had. So we had a building uptown, and I moved the brewery. I actually installed a new brewery at that point, because I picked up a brewery at the equipment that I have now actually at a sort of a receivership sale, and got a good deal on that. And but it was in nice newer equipment, the same kind of equipment that I had always used. So we moved it uptown and opened the brewery, and the Henry House just became the Henry House at that point. And we actually reopened Ginger's Tavern too. We just started to get back into some entertainment and things like that, and it was kind of fun. But after about 10 years of that, up there, the downtown business was just changing in ways that I didn't like very much, and I decided to get out of it and just brew beer. So 2 years ago, we shut the bars downtown, and I'd sold the Henry House a few years before that. We still sell them quite a bit of beer, and moved up here to the North End, just in a small factory, basically. What's unique about our beer? For example, when the other guys opened up, like I said, I was 12 years by myself. And when they opened up, I decided, actually my sales went up, and they went up. People were saying, "Oh, this is going to be competition." And it's not competition. This is these guys are going to be marketing my beer. We're all craft brewers are all in the business of selling craft beer, and if you like their beer, you can't wait to try mine. You can't wait to try this guy's. You're used to drinking Labatt's Blue, and then all of a sudden you have, some really nice beers out there, English bitters, Irish stouts that you really couldn't get before. What sets us apart is the fact that we still brew in a very traditional English style. Like most guys still are, they're brewing interesting beers, but their plants are more modern, and like we have strictly open fermentation systems that people brewed with for years, but it's not it's very seldom you see. There's not too many small breweries that use it. We use it. I use it primarily, and I'll always stick with it because of the yeast that we use is the Ringwood yeast that I brought over from England when I came back. That only works in an open fermentation system, and I really think it's one of the most things that makes our beer really distinctive, and it's just a wonderful product. It's great stuff. We just off one into the next, off one into the next, and it's like sourdough. Just keeps going. There's no cost to it. Like we mass produce it ourselves, and if I ever have a problem with it, there's other Ringwood brewers that we act as sort of a resource to each other. Like I won't give you the yeast, but I'll give it to the guy in Fredericton that brews with it. And if I have a problem, I can get it from him. But also we still do the cask conditioned real ales, which nobody in Nova Scotia does. I shouldn't say that. I think a couple of them do it, for a keg once in a blue moon for a party or something like that. But it's what we were known as. And like say when they opened up, I redid our bar and got all the new hand pumps and set it all up really quite nice and set it up right. And so we were the traditional ones, And when it comes to the competitive nature of the business, I don't see the other local craft brewers, even though I compete with them, I don't see them as my major competitors. My major competitors are Labatt's and Molson's. And these are two multi-billion-dollar worldwide operations. These are big places with a lot of punch and a lot of marketing capability and things like that we'll never have. I shouldn't say we'll never have it, but we're never going to have it like they have. And so the whole thing is to convert people from drinking those beers to trying your beers, and it's not a matter of even making a dent in them. It's a matter of a tiny, like if we take it from 1% of the sales for craft breweries to 3% of all the beer sales. I mean, that's like, for us, it's like quintupling our sales, and we could all survive quite nicely on that, and Labatt's and Molson's wouldn't even barely bat an eyelash, although they have a tendency sometimes to get a little bent out of shape about losing 0.01% of market share, but because that's the way those guys think. They're basically run by accountants and marketing guys, and everything is an accounting or a marketing question. The goal of craft brewers, we almost support one another. Like when someone is successful at it, it opens the market up that much more, and people are much more willing to then come try my beer, this guy's beer, that guy's beer, and find out they like it.